drop those drinks. It's time for Sports Around the Bar. Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jake, your bartender, and this is Drew, and we are working overtime this week to talk about the NCAA college basketball tournament. Drew, it's going to be fun, man. Honestly, I am really excited to see all this action going to. We went into the first round last time. We're going to do the second round this time, and also the Sweet 16.
Right.
Any great matchups you're looking forward to? We're going to do some news first, though.
Yeah, we're going to do some news. I don't know, the way the show's bracket's going, there's already tons of upsets, so it's going to be really hard to decide who wins these upsets after it's already been
I was going to say, watch, they're going to beat us. Because that's the way it always shakes out in the NCAA tournament. You fill out your bracket, and by the first couple games, it's already out the window. Anyway, if you're looking for the perfect bracket, you've come to the right place, because we have all the answers.
Absolutely. Sharif, Shay, what's going on, guys? Glad you guys could join us this evening.
Absolutely. Steve is in the house. He says Buffalo Bulls. I think he's pulling for Buffalo. Spoiler alert, they're one of my sleeper teams this year, too. I'm not going to sit there and call him a Cinderella, because I don't see him getting to, like, the Elite Eight or anything higher than that, but we'll talk about them in just a minute. First, though...
I was just going to say, Steve, unfortunately for the show's copy of the bracket, they're already losing him to St. John. So, I don't have him like that, but the show's bracket does so far. Well, as of now.
Absolutely. Shay is still after the Thanos glove, man. You're going to have to pry it off our hands. That's all I can say. Why don't we talk news first, though? We got Robert Kraft. Obviously, I want to lead it off with him because we've talked about this. I feel like we've talked this story to death, but we got to keep going because there's a new breaking development. The Florida prosecutors have offered a plea deal which says you're going to get off scot-free as long as you admit we would have got you if we went to court. What are your first thoughts about this, Drew?
Well, he doesn't have to have humiliation, I guess. I guess he can sit there and not have to worry about going into court and being prosecuted against and questioned. So, because he's gonna take the plea deal.
Absolutely. Captain Upset is also in the house. Good to see you, Will. Look, my thing is, when I see this, I think he should probably even hold out, because when you get a prosecutor this early into the trial and then the entire process that's reaching out and saying, look, we'll just drop everything as long as you admit that we were right. To me, it sounds like they're reaching. I think they really don't have anything to go on. They might have miscollected evidence. It might be something like that. I think they realize something's wrong with this case, and they may not be able to get him, so they're like, we got to cover our ass right now. We have to save face. That's what I think this is. It's a CYA moment, Drew. I think he should even keep fighting, because if I'm his lawyer, I'm like, oh, I smell blood in the water.
It just depends on what kind of money the FBI has put into this thing, if he wants to fight it or not. But if he's taking the plea deal, even his lawyers are coming to him saying, just take the plea deal. You can
probably get off scot-free. I mean, nothing on your record. Maybe you do just sit there and admit, maybe they had a little bit of something.
Throw some money into anti-prostitution rings.
If it was you, and you were Robert Kraft, put your mind in his, kind of situation where you've got all this money, you got probably busted, caught pretty red-handed. Would you take this plea deal?
Well,
or would you try to fight for your honor?
Let me say something just real quick to that.
You wouldn't be in that situation?
The prostitutes would be coming to my mansion. I would not be going to wherever they are. So that would never happen in mine. But if I was him, I would absolutely take the plea deal. If you can get off without that being on your record, it's definitely worth doing.
I don't know. I think I'd fight. Maybe I'd just go down swinging. Maybe it's just who I am as a person. I'd sit there and be saying, oh, you're offering this to me already? I think I'm willing to go out there and battle with you. I don't know. Like I said, it's tough to sit there and say until you're in that situation. Maybe he just wants it out of his life, but yeah, who can say? Anyway, one thing to take away from this, money can get you out of trouble. So, I don't know, we both aspire to have that kind of money. We'll see if we ever get there.
The Sharif hoodie is the Sharif hoodie. The Chiefs hoodie is hanging up, man. It's it's a thicker hoodie, and it's not cold enough to be wearing that thick hoodie.
I was gonna say, you might have to retire it here for the summer here. It gets pretty hot in Tennessee, if you guys don't know. I don't know if you could be wearing it in the 80, 90, 100 degree heat.
I'll be back to wearing t-shirts.
Just cut off the sleeves. You'll be good to go. Moving forward, though, Drew, let's talk Mike Trout and his new contract. Guys, if you haven't heard, 12-year deal. Speaking of money, $430 million, all of it guaranteed, because we're talking baseball here. 36 a year, Drew. It's going to top Zach Greinke's number. He's going to have the highest per year in history for Major League Baseball. What do you think about this deal?
It's not even in baseball. It's in American sports altogether. This would be the highest contract in American sports. Dude, it's nuts. I mean, it is nuts. We're talking huge money. I mean, almost $500 million. I mean, he's arguably the best player in baseball. So it's crazy, man. I mean, They don't want him going anywhere. With the talks about Philly possibly trying to snag him up, they said, no, watch this.
I like it for that deal, but then you're talking about a 12-year deal for a guy who's already 27. Drew, he's going to get off this deal when he's 39 years old. You're going to be paying a 38 or a 39-year-old guy $36 million to ruin your franchise.
Never see him in another uniform? Yeah.
I love Mike Trout, but the Angels are not competitive right now. So unless they get competitive in a hurry, and I think the clock is ticking already, you're going to be talking about how this just sunk the franchise for the next 10 years because if they don't get competitive here in the next couple of years, he's going to be on this roster making $36 million, and at 33, at 34, at 35, you're not the same guy at 27. You're not going to be putting up the numbers. Even in baseball, you're going to see that drop-off, and as soon as that drop-off starts to happen, you're done because you've already outspent yourself. You're not going to be able to keep up with teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox that aren't married to those just truly team-killing contracts. And Philadelphia's in the same way, but when you look at Philadelphia, they're in a better place to succeed right now. They've got in guys like Real Muto. They've brought in other guys. Was he them or the Reds? I don't remember. They've brought in a bunch of guys, like McCutcheon as well. They've worked on their pitching. They're in a situation where they're going to succeed much easier than the Angels are. That really, you look at the Angels, they got Mike Trout and really not a whole lot else.
They got Mike Trout.
And he's a great player. He's an all-star. He might be the best player in the game.
They got Mike Trout.
But it's a team sport. You only get 1 out of 9 at bats with Mike Trout, so you got to flesh out the other 8 guys if you're gonna have any kind of chance. You got to work on your pitching as well. I'm not crazy about this deal. I get it. You don't want him to walk. They didn't want him to run away. They did a good job of securing him early, but with no outs to this contract, it's not like Machado and the Padres where if things don't work out, you can say thanks for the memories. See you later. They've tied themselves to him. We'll see what happens.
Let me catch up some comments real quick here. Will says that he thinks the military should be making that kind of money. He's just saying, well, they do. They just don't give it to
the guys doing everything.
The guys doing everything. It goes to everything else. And then Shree said, can MLB players restructure contracts?
They can if the player allows, but it's fully guaranteed, so they have no incentive to. Unlike football, where you can cut somebody and get some of that money back, you can recoup it, so it encourages the player, like, okay, they might cut me. There's a reason for me to negotiate so I can stay on the team. Baseball players are set. You cut them or not, doesn't matter. You owe them that money. So it's 100% guaranteed. There are no options or anything like that in football unless they have an opt-out clause where they can cancel the rest of the contract. But they didn't get one of those on Trout. The only guy who got one of those was Manny Machado. So I think the Padres, out of these 3 mega deals we've seen, have been the smartest so far.
Yeah.
Moving on, let's talk Randall Cobb to the Cowboys. Obviously, you're not crazy about this move. I think he can revitalize his career here. I think the Cowboys are a good fit for him, and I think he'll be a good Cole Beasley replacement.
The ball does not look deflated, Shay. It's perfectly nice and tight. Yeah. See,
Tom Brady got a hold of it. Maybe
now,
Robert Kraft.
This move, in a Cowboys sense, makes all kinds of sense. I mean, they need another receiver. There's no doubt about it. Cobb can fit that description. Problem is, how healthy is he going to be? Is it 6 games? Is it 8 games he's going to give him and he's going to be injured? I mean, the reason the Packers let him go is because he never played a whole season. True. So when you look at it, you got Dak Prescott. He's an average quarterback. You got Zeke, who is a beast at running back. You got Amari Cooper, who's on and off, can't really stay consistent. And then you got Jason Witten, who you said is 99 years old and slow. And then you throw Randall Cobb out there, who's going to give you a few gains of being healthy. Does this make them deeper in the playoffs? Does this make them a Super Bowl contender because of Randall Cobb?
Not just because of him, but when you talk about the whole, when you talk about everybody going together, do I think they're closer than last year? Yeah, because I like Randall Cobb. When he's on the field, I like Randall Cobb better than I like Cole Beasley. I like Jason Witten better than where they were at tight end as well. If they can bring the defense back and keep that elite defense going, you have Amari Cooper now, so you're going to get that great play out of that receiver as well. Hopefully. Anyway, like you said, he's been a little hot and cold. I think some of it can be chalked up to scheme changes and everything in Oakland. If you can put all that together, I think they've still improved on offense, maybe only incrementally, but they're still better than they were last year, in my opinion.
Will says, Cobb is a beast, don't hate. Man, show me where he's been a beast at. I mean, it's been a long time.
It's been a few years, but if you remember when he was there and he had Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball too. I know I'm throwing a lot of asterisks up here besides this. But I like Randall Cobb. I draft him every year in fantasy, like round 16, and just hope it works out for me.
But Sharif makes the best point here. If Cobb can't succeed in Green Bay, Dak is a downgrade. Will he be healthy?
Well, that's the thing. If he can stay healthy, I think that's important. I think that's the biggest issue. The reason he wasn't succeeding in Green Bay isn't because Aaron Rodgers just decided, I don't need you anymore. It was because he was always hurt. When he was out there, he had some great games. Look at the Bears game, the first game of the year this year for the Packers. He absolutely killed it. He had like 150 yards receiving on like 8 or 9 catches, ripped the Bears apart, and got that one long catch at the end of the game that won him a game. As long as he's on the field, he's an impact player. He's a guy that can make plays. I'm not going to sit there and say he's Amari Cooper, but as a number 2, a number 3 option if you got Jason Witten, you can do a lot worse in this league. Let me say that.
No, you definitely can. Brian has figured it out, though, because it's ever since Aaron Rodgers dumped his bae, Olivia Munn, it's been trouble. And that's the reason why Cobb is
now he's got Danica Patrick, another perennial failure out of NASCAR. So the guy seems to bounce between all these like older women. I'm not sure, he's got some kind of like, I don't know. I'm not going to judge Aaron Rodgers for his choice in women. It's almost like he's compensating for something, but we're not going to go into it. Going back to this, I don't think... if you look at Tony Romo when he was dating Jessica Simpson, and this, to me, is the real statistic here. We're really deep diving into stats here. When he was dating Jessica Simpson, Tony Romo, when Aaron Rodgers is dating Olivia Munn, now that he's dating Danica Patrick, all these high-profile women are distracting these quarterbacks. Just go get your girl nobody knows, and you're going to be back to being an elite guy again. I think that's what's messing Aaron Rodgers up right now.
Joseph's with me. If Rob can't succeed with Rodgers, why would he succeed with Dak? I'm right there with you. I don't get it. And Rob goes, he has a question. What do you think about the Browns? Sorry, I had to work.
No, it's okay. We like the Browns, man. Obviously, we like the moves. I think you like the Odell Beckham trade just as much as I do. I think they did a good job bringing him in. Even more than that, I like Olivier Vernon because they had the replacement in Colbert at guard for Zeitler, who they traded away for him. They're adding to their pass rush, which was one of my biggest needs for them. I was actually thinking they were going to draft a pass rusher this coming draft. So I think they did a great job replacing a couple of positions of need. They brought in an elite player like Odell Beckham. As long as Tony Kitchens can kind of keep this locker room under control and keep everybody focused and pulling in the same direction, Cleveland is going to be dangerous.
I like them on paper. On paper, they win the AFC North. There's no doubt about it. Kitchens is a question mark. If Bees was on, he'd sit there and defend Kitchens to the end, but that's a question mark. What does Kitchens create in that locker room? What does he create when he's running the whole entire team? You might have the players, but I look back at the Eagles a few years ago. I mean, they had everybody. They had a superstar team, and they didn't do anything. So is this kind of the same scenario? It's hard to tell, Rob. Be honest with you. I like the Browns. I think they're going to win it, but the AFC North, but we'll see.
Also, Nate asks, how can I like Witten more than what they've had? He hasn't played in 3 years. I agree with you, but he's still a Hall of Fame tight end. He's still you can't sit there and tell me him being out of the game, he's going to forget everything that he's learned through his 15, 16-year career. He's still a wily veteran that can get open. He's never been the fastest guy. He's always used his size to generate space between these cornerbacks and the linebackers and everything. I still think he can do that. Obviously, you're not getting Jason Witten at 30. You're getting him at 35 or 36, wherever he's at right now. But I still think it's an upgrade. I still think he helps that tight end room, even if he helps guys like Jarwin kind of develop into next year. Last year, they didn't really have a tight end. Jarwin did not step up. I mean, neither did anyone else in that tight end room. They need that veteran presence that can help these guys kind of guide them to the next level that, hey, I may not be here next year. I may not be here 2 years from now. This is what you need to do, and this is how you do it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to catch up here. Jeremy goes, what about Clinton Dix to the Bears? How do you all rate the Bears defense?
I don't like losing Adrian Amos, but they couldn't pay him what he wanted, and if you're going to replace him, I like Clinton Dix to do it. I think he's that versatile safety that can play in the box and it can also play over the top. I like Adrian Amos a lot, but again, you're stealing a division rivals player in Clinton Dix. I know you spent a little bit of time in the Redskins last year, but you're getting a guy that's been a Packer for years, so there's going to be that kind of vengefulness going up against Aaron Rodgers here for the next couple games. And I think they did a good job replacing him on the cheap. So you saved a lot of money and you made things happen.
Sharif, why do you think it's a 6-second 40-yard dash for me, man? You don't give me 5? You don't give me 5 seconds? It's just automatically 6?
I was going to say 8. Sharif, you ain't never seen this guy run.
Dude, just because...
Then again, I ain't never seen you run. Have you run before, Drew?
Just because I get winded after step 2 doesn't mean I'm going to stop, okay? I'll pass out at 41.
There's no beer...
But it will be under 5 seconds.
There's no beer break halfway through, okay? You got to run the whole 40 yards.
No, I'm carrying my beer. I'm not worried about that.
It's okay. Shay also says, change his mind, but Dak Prescott is overrated and will be a bust as time goes on. I'm kind of with you, and that's been the story on Dak Prescott. He's not anything special. I think everybody kind of recognizes that he's not Aaron Rodgers at this point. But you're hoping that you put the defense around him, you put the receivers in place, and he can look good enough to get you into the playoffs and maybe make a run at the Super Bowl. And I think they kind of showed last year that they're dangerous enough to do that. I think with Amari Cooper going there, Dak Prescott looked a lot better because he has that elite target. If you bring in 1 or 2 more elite pass catchers, if you put him in Cleveland right now with that Dallas defense, you can talk about this guy winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Steve's going to give me a solid 5.5 seconds.
Steve's being generous, okay? That's all I can say.
You would sit there and pull your calculator out and calculate the wind trajectory and how you could move to the side, and then by the time it's all said and done, it'll be an hour later, and you're like, I'm ready to run.
I just teleport. Anyway, going back to the comments here really quick. Let's see. I got a bunch of different ones. Charo said he's glad Deshaun Jackson is back in Philly. I agree with you there. I think it was a good move by Philadelphia, and it was good for Tampa Bay to get rid of him when he wants out. No reason to hang on to him for Tampa Bay. And then on the flip side, Philadelphia is trying to make that last kind of push towards the Super Bowl again. I like bringing in veterans that know what they're doing and still have something to offer, like I think Deshaun Jackson does.
Man, you guys are killing it on comments. Thomas says, Andy Dalton, Bengals, what's up, boys? Oh, man, he's got a lot more.
Well, let me pump the brakes. As bad as everybody's dogged Andy Dalton his entire career, sitting there saying,
dog him.
No, I know. I'm saying as bad as everyone's talked about him. Last year, he was the best part of this team. Him and AJ Green, before they both went out, that was the only thing working on the Bengals. You look at the run game; it was kind of inconsistent at points. Mixon was very good too. I shouldn't say anything about that, but the offensive line play was very inconsistent. And then the defense was just a dumpster fire. So when you look at Andy Dalton coming back, if they can work on this defense, if they can fix the offensive line, if they can add a couple weapons, if we're going to talk about Andy Dalton maybe being a contender, I think he's somewhere around that mid-range quarterback. Too good to get rid of, not good enough to win you a Super Bowl on his own.
Hey, I'll let it be. Shay says, Breeze, super bow, and he'll retire. I agree, man. He pulls out one of those super bows. I think he'll probably retire as well.
No, if he gets the Super Bowl, I think you're going to see Drew Brees right off in the sunset. That'll be his second. I think that'll be, hands down, first ballot Hall of Famer for him. I don't think he has anything else left to prove at that point. He'll be out of football at that point, especially because he's coming up on 40. I don't think he has the same drive that Brady does, where Brady wants to just do it every year. I don't know what Brady's going to do when he gets out, but I think Brees, if he wins one more, that's all we're going to see.
What's going on, Sean? Glad you could join us. Jason, the same, man. I'm glad everything's going good with you. Thomas says, come on, guys. New coaches. Does the new coaching scheme change it in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, you can't keep going with Marvin Lewis. Let's face it.
So it changed him into playoffs?
No. But let me say this. You had to make a change. Right. You weren't going anywhere with Marvin Lewis. You were just spinning your tires. Think about all those times you made the playoffs and got bounced out in the first round. It was obvious. This needed to happen for years. Do I like Zach Taylor going in there? No, I don't. I don't think he's the right guy. But you had to do something. I think the Bengals should have been more aggressive in their coaching search. But I can say that a lot about the Bengals. They need to be more aggressive in a lot of things. But you had to make the change. Now that you've got the change, even if this bombs out in 2 to 3 years from now, you're talking about getting a new coach again, you're still in a better spot than just riding with Marvin Lewis and never really truly threatening for a Super Bowl, but you can't be on pace for it.
Thomas, we suck, man. I'm still glad you're watching us, even though we suck. Jason said scale 1 to 10, Dalton is a 5. I agree with that. Charo says Eifert has to stay healthy. You're 100% right. I mean, that guy needs to stay healthy because he is the number 2 target in that offense.
Especially now that Kroft is gone. I mean, he is your number 1 tight end. He's the only guy you're going to rely on. Not that I thought Tyler Kroft was the best tight end in the world, but I think the gap between Tyler Kroft and the rest of the guys in the tight end room for Cincinnati is pretty big. So you need that backup tight end to step in if something happens to Eifert. The problem is you can't count on this guy. He's going to get hurt, right?
Right.
I totally agree there.
All right. John says, what about those Tar Heels and Marvin Lewis was garbage?
Oh, that's right. We do need to talk about basketball here. And he's right. I agree. I'm not going to say Marvin Lewis is garbage, but he's kind of like Jeff Fisher, where he's going to win you some games. You're going to go win 6, 7, 8 games a year. But when it comes time for the playoffs, you're never really truly a threat, and eventually you're going to be out of the league. So I think they hung around with him too long. They should have been more aggressive in that standpoint. They're one of the most conservative franchises out there. It's just really tough when you're not willing to make any kind of changes. You always have to be aggressive in the NFL, I think, if you really want to be successful. Look at the Patriots. They've had how many Hall of Fame level players have they had that they just said, you can go? How many great players have they had? Guys like Chandler Jones, where he's getting 18, 19 sacks a year now, and they're like, we don't need you. We'll move on without you. And they're still winning Super Bowls. The Bengals, I'd like to see them get more aggressive going forward. And I think Marvin Lewis was part of that conservatism where, even though he wasn't the guy to get the job done, they stuck with him too long.
Shay says Marvin Lewis will be a coach in the XFL. It's a possibility. Jeremy?
I'd like to get him out of the AAF booth talking about the games because him and Jones-Drew sitting next to each other, if you haven't watched the broadcast, it's painfully boring. I don't doubt they know what they're talking about because obviously these guys are both veterans, but put someone next to them that can spice things up, that can add a little bit of entertainment value to it because they put me to sleep every time I'm trying to watch the AAF.
Deo says, does Kansas City completely crumble since they have Chris Jones on the D and that's about it? I mean, they got
Well, I mean,
I got the honey badger.
let's not pretend like the defense was killing it last year. I think as long as they have Mahomes and Tyreek Hill available with Travis Kelce out there, they're going to be dangerous. That's all you need. The running game's going to take care of itself. I mean, we saw Damian Williams sit there and get 5 or 6 yards a carry. I think the Chiefs are going to be just as dangerous this year as they are last, as long as Tyreek Hill is available.
I think so too. And Jeremy asks, what's our predictions of the Chicago Bears and our prediction of Kentucky going into the bracket?
You're all over the place. We're going to talk about Kentucky here going forward.
Trying to catch up with everything.
Yeah,
man.
we are going to go talk about Kentucky here in a little bit. As for the Chicago Bears, man, I still think they're going playoffs. The defense is intact. The only major subtraction is Adrian Amos, and like I said before, I think they did a good job replacing with Clinton Dix. So as long as Trubisky doesn't regress, as long as he doesn't have a third-year slump, I like the Bears' chances. I think they're in a good spot. They should be the favorite to win the division.
Yeah, I think they win the division as well, and I think they're going to see themselves in an NFC Championship game.
Also, Jeremy says he's guessing the Colts are going to break the bank, or they're going to break the bank, I think he says, and draft to get what they need, or they're going to bank on the draft to get what they need. Sorry about that. And he's okay, but they're ready to win now. I agree. I would have liked to see the Colts be more aggressive as well, but Ballard has already come out and said he's not going to overpay for guys. He's not going to give them more money.
You said something positive about the Chiefs.
I did, yeah. I don't hate the Chiefs. I just like watching Drew get upset when I say something mean about the Chiefs. That's what I like.
I don't get upset. I get even.
Going back to the Colts really quick before we move on here, because we're going to talk about basketball tonight. That was what we were trying to talk about. I think the Colts should have been more aggressive, but again, they're sticking to their guns and saying we're not overpaying for players because that's the fastest way to sink your franchise, especially in the NFL. So I guess we'll see. I don't know what they're going to do with that $100 million because I think they have to spend about 70 of it to get to league compliant. I don't know if they're going to re-up Andrew Luck or whether you're going to see them bring on a bunch of free agents here in the second wave of free agency, but they got to do something with it, and yes, they are going to rely on those 10, 12 draft picks, whatever they have, to sit there and refresh this team and try to build and get that next Darius Leonard to come in and help them. All right, Drew, why don't we talk basketball?
Are you sure?
We got about 40 million comments, and we appreciate every one of them, but we are here to talk basketball.
Are we sure?
Unless you want to do a show again on Thursday. We're going to talk basketball next. I want to talk about, just really quick, Kyler Murray working out for the Arizona Cardinals. It's on, y'all. They're drafting him. You heard it here first. Going on to anything else, let's talk basketball, Drew. Because yesterday, we talked about the first round of the NCAA tournament. Today, I want to talk about round 2. And it starts with that first matchup. We're going to go, I have Duke matching up against VCU because that's who I had going through to the round 2. What do you have?
I have UFC, and so does the show's copy as well. But
UCF.
Yeah, UCF. I'm sorry. And with that, I don't see Duke losing.
No, I think they're going to blow them out. I mean, UCF does not put enough points on the board to make a deep run in the playoffs. They've only scored 70 points in the last 7, 8, 10 games. I really don't see them beating a team like Duke that's got 3 top 5 NBA talents. This is going to be a blowout. I think there should be no reason why we can't count on them to really run the table here and Duke be the favorite to move on to the Sweet 16. And it's the same kind of situation with VCU. I don't think VCU, even though they've got a couple good wins against Temple, Texas, and Wichita State, they're not beating a team like Duke. They haven't beat a team like Duke. Short of a huge upset, Duke's going to keep cruising on here, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Shay, it's definitely a possibility, man. Kansas City and New Orleans in a Super Bowl, it's definitely a possibility.
Absolutely, guys. Now, remember, play along in the comments because one of these brackets is entirely yours. We're going to go with whoever you guys vote for. Drew said you had Duke versus UCF. You guys let us know who's winning that matchup. Absolutely. Moving on. Drew, our next round, Mississippi State versus Virginia Tech. I have them. You have them. No, I'm sorry.
The show does not.
The show does not. The show has St. Louis escaping the first round and going to play.
And Liberty.
And Liberty. Like I said, upsets everywhere. Thanks, Will.
All upsets.
Who do you guys having between your Liberty pick and St. Louis? And also going back to my pick, Mississippi State versus Virginia Tech, I think is a good game. I think it's going to be a close game, but Mississippi State commits too many turnovers, and that's going to be the death blow in this one. They're going to lose this one close to Virginia Tech, and I see Virginia Tech moving on to Sweet 16.
I have Mississippi State winning it. I think they're going to clean up their turnovers, and I think that they can win the game. But as far as the show's copy, we need to know, guys, you guys have Liberty and St. Louis going against each other. We didn't know who you think's going to come out as a winner there, and we still got Duke and UCF. Let us know who you think could be the winners out of those.
Absolutely. Now, Frank also says Duke takes it all. Next story. Look, Frank, I like the optimism. If you're a Duke fan, I agree with you. I think they're the heavy favorite here going into this when you got a guy like Zion, and there's no really There's no one out in the NCAA that can match up with him, I think, one-on-one. He's definitely the clear-cut number 1 NBA pick. But you got to fill out the rest of the bracket if you want to win all that money, right? And that's what we're trying to do.
I'm going to go ahead and assume everyone agrees that Duke's going to beat UCF. I'm going to assume that that's just known. But we got 1 vote for Liberty. We got 1 vote for St. Louis. And now we got a third. Okay. Now we're tied up 2-2, guys. Who's going to be the tiebreaker?
While we're talking about that, I'll give you guys a minute to vote. David Harris says, what do we think about Jalmont? Look, Murray State question. I think he's going to be a top 5 NBA pick. I did not have them escaping the first round. I like him. I think he's a great player. I think he keeps them in the game, but I don't think he's going to be good enough to beat a team like Marquette that's complete all the way through. I see them losing out in the first round, but I think that's also an upset game. I like Marquette to make a deep run in this tournament, but they could lose in the first round because this is a tough matchup when you got a guy as good as Jalmont.
What's going on, Sonny? Glad you could join us. Just to remind you guys all again, in the show's bracket, we got Liberty and St. Louis. It's tied 2-2 on votes. Who's going to be the tiebreaker, guys?
I see 3 St. Louis's on there. Let's go with that. Sounds good to me. Why don't we move on to our next pick here, Drew? I have Belmont or Temple, whichever team manages to get through that game, playing against LSU in the second round. Do you see that as an upset as well? Can an 11 seed upset a team like LSU with no coach?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The way that Belmont's been playing, I definitely think that they could. I mean, we're getting a lot more hype here because we're in Nashville area, so we get to hear all about Belmont, but I think it's definitely a possibility. But LSU does have the talent. The problem is, like you said, they don't have their head coach. They don't have the guy that brought them all together.
And I think in college, it's all about the head coach. It's all about that leadership, especially when you've got guys that have only played together for 1 season. You're talking about maybe 30 games they've played together between the tournaments and the regular season, maybe up to 40. They don't have that much time together. It's about the coach that can keep everybody calm, keep everybody focused, especially when you don't know who's going to play. A lot of it comes down to game planning. I don't like the fact that LSU doesn't have their coach, but I still think they're way too talented to lose to an 11 seed. I think they're going to be able to pull through. I'm going to take LSU to move on here. What about the show? Who did they have for that? Also Belmont versus LSU, is that right?
Yes, Belmont versus LSU. And
so you agree with me on that one at least.
And right now, LSU is winning, so it looks like LSU is moving on.
Works for me. I think that's the right pick, guys. I don't think you can pick a team as talented as LSU that managed to win the SEC. You got to have them get through a team like Belmont, right? There's no way they get upset there. Maybe the first round, maybe they lose to Yale, but up till now, they've had a pretty easy ride.
Agreed.
Moving forward, Drew, let's talk about Minnesota versus Michigan State, who I have in the next matchup. What about the show? Do they agree with me there?
They got Louisville and Michigan State.
What do you guys have for that? Let us know in the comments below. But when I look at these games, I see a team like Minnesota going up against Michigan State. I like Michigan State in this one. I think they're going to manage to squeak their way through. When you're talking about a 2 seed like Michigan State that plays really, really good defense, they're one of the best teams, I think, in this tournament still that nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking Tennessee. Everybody's talking Kentucky because they've been the flash teams. They've both been close to number 1. Kentucky's obviously the veteran team that everybody's used to seeing up there. I think these guys are flying a little bit under the radar, and when you get that and all the pressure's off of you, sometimes you play your best basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. So far, we got Michigan State taking it right now.
Now, do you guys think Minnesota can get through? They did beat Purdue twice within 10 days.
They don't even come out of round 1. They got Louisville coming out of round 1.
Do you see Louisville? Again, another great storied franchise when it comes to college basketball. Can Louisville upset, or are we talking about Michigan State all the way?
I have Michigan State going to my Final Four, or not my Final Four, my Elite Eight. So it's, it's a tough team to beat.
I agree with you.
It's well coached, and it has tons of talent.
I agree with you, man. I'm going to go Michigan State here as well. I think you guys agree with us in the comments as well. Is that right? So we'll go Michigan State with that.
We are going to go Michigan State.
Moving on. Next, I have Gonzaga facing off against Baylor. I think the show picks Syracuse instead of Baylor. But it's a close matchup. Again, those 8 and 9 seeds are always hard to call because the teams are so close together. It's hard to rank. Where do you see this game going here, Drew? Do you like the 1 seed in Gonzaga?
I do like the 1 seed in Gonzaga, and the ESPN has them as the highest percentage of getting to the Final Four at 65%. As a show, we have Gonzaga and Syracuse going against each other. You guys let us know what you think that's going to happen out of that matchup.
Absolutely, guys. Keep the comments rolling. We want to get your opinions here as to who's going to win, whether it's Gonzaga or Syracuse. Let us know who pulls through to the next round. For me, I think Gonzaga is going to cruise through this one. I know they're the number 1 seed right now. Everybody's talking about them being one of the best teams in this tournament. But I think they're kind of one of the benefactors of some of these teams like Duke and Tennessee and Kentucky, all kinds of struggling and beating each other up. I mean, Tennessee's beaten Gonzaga. I don't know if they're quite as good as everyone wants to sit there and say. So is this the game that they get upset? I'm going to say no, probably not this one, but I also don't have them in my finals.
Real quick. Frank, we're drinking on that PB Drews. I brewed it in my bathtub. The PB Drews. And then we got... Joseph said Syracuse beats Baylor soundly. That zone D is crazy, and we got a bunch of Gonzaga. So even though Syracuse beats Baylor, it looks like Gonzalez, whatever, is going to go on to Sweet 16.
Whoever they are, they're moving on. We appreciate that. Moving forward, we got I have Marquette versus Florida State. Does the show agree with me there? Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think this is going to be another great matchup. I like Florida State. Obviously, they did a good job in their tournament. They had a big win against Virginia. I believe it was Virginia. They did a good job up until now. I like Florida State as a basketball team. I think this is one of the closer games of our round 2. But I like Marquette, man. This is a complete team. I love Marquette to make a deep run in this tournament. I think if you're going to bet on a 5 seed to make it in, I like Marquette. I think you can do a lot worse there. I got Marquette pulling through in this one. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments whether you guys think Florida State's going to be able to pull this one out. But to me, I think Marquette is criminally underrated here. I think they should be a 3 seed. I think they should be a 2 seed, and I think they're going to pull on past Florida State here.
Yeah, I have them. I have this matchup in my bracket as well as Marquette and then Florida State, and I also have Marquette beating Florida State. So far, we just have 1 vote for. We actually got 2 votes. So we got 1 and 1. Guys, let us know what you think.
Now, right there,
in the
FSU.
comments.
Joseph's going Florida State. So is John. And Will is saying Marquette. Jeremy's saying Marquette. And Frank is saying Florida State by a few. It's close. Oh, Sharif tied it up. Marquette. Okay. So we're sitting at 3 and 3.
I actually have it 3 and 2. So.
All right, Drew. Break the tie, man. Who wins?
Dave just did it. Florida.
All right. Florida State moves on in our show's bracket, guys. Again, I can't wait for you guys to beat me so you can tell me how great you guys are at group thinking through all this stuff. It's always fun to do that. Moving forward, let's talk about our next matchup. I have Buffalo versus Texas Tech, but the show does not agree with me. I don't think they had Buffalo getting past St. John's. Is that correct?
Correct.
It could also be Arizona State. We don't know who's going to win that game yet. I think it's going on right now, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's tomorrow night that they play that game. Again, we still don't know that's which team is going to be representing for the 11th seed. But it's going to be a good matchup, I think. I don't have them getting past Buffalo, but the show does. Who do you guys have getting through here? Is it that mystery 11 seed, or do you see a team like Texas Tech pulling through? Because they did have Tech.
As the show, they picked St. John yesterday. So we have St. John versus Texas Tech. You guys let us know what you think on that matchup. Of course, personally, me and you both have Buffalo going against Texas Tech. So you guys let us know what you think.
Buffalo to me is another sleeper team. I have Buffalo pulling through in this one. Again, I don't think they're necessarily as talented as some of these teams. I think they're one of the better coached teams with Nate Oates there. I think he's one of the best coaches in college football, and you're going to see him move off of Buffalo. Somebody's going to give him that big money to go be a coach at one of these bigger schools. Until then, he's going to lead Buffalo into another deep run here. I think they're going to do a good job of beating Texas Tech in this and upsetting a 3 seed early in this tournament.
Joseph, if Buffalo was in our bracket, in the show's bracket, I agree with you that they could possibly beat Texas Tech, but unfortunately we have St. John in the show, and Will, what did you say, Will? Everything's going too fast. Will's hating. He says all your haters are hating on Marquette. Well, maybe you're hating on the haters that hate Marquette.
I was going to say, I have Marquette going, well, I'm not going to tell you that. Spoiler alert. I have Marquette going deep. Let me say that. So I agree with you, Will, there. I think they're one of the better teams out there. But this is democracy. The show is going to get to pick everybody. Unfortunately, Florida State moves through. Let us know, though, who's going to make it through. You have Texas Tech going through for the show?
Yeah, it was pretty sound.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to our next pick, though. I have Florida versus Michigan in our final setup. What do you have?
The show has that the same. I actually have Nevada and Michigan in my own, but let's go Florida and Michigan. Who do you guys think are going to win out of that matchup?
Absolutely. You're talking about a 10 seed matching up against a 2. On paper, it should totally be Michigan all the way, but we've been saying that. We said that last year. We're talking about how great this top 5 defense is. We talk about how big their wingers are and how well they do from the corners and everything like that. But it didn't really materialize last year. Do you see another upset in the cards? Because I can see Michigan making a deep run here. I'm picking them to win this game, but I'm not necessarily going to say it's a blowout. Florida has some impressive wins here. I think they're a good team. I just don't think they're a great team, unfortunately.
I see Michigan going all the way to the Final Four. I think they're a pretty good team.
They did beat LSU. That's my biggest thing for Florida. If you're going to pick somebody to sit there and harp on, they did it without the coach, but they beat LSU in the SEC tournament. I'm not sure which way are we going with the show, Drew?
Michigan.
I don't blame you for taking the overdog in this one, but when I look at everything else on paper, I'm going to sit there and say Michigan's not a home run for me. I'm not feeling confident about that pick.
David, in the show's bracket, they did not pick St. Mary's. In my bracket, I have St. Mary's beating Villanova. But after that, that's where they end. They'll lose to Purdue in my bracket. But in the shows, they don't even get out of the first round.
Will also says, I'm not hating. Call 911. I know. I must be having a stroke or something.
We'll let you pass out first.
Absolutely. Moving forward, though, Drew, let's talk about our next matchup. Virginia versus Ole Miss is who I have in the bracket. What about the show?
The show has Virginia versus Oklahoma.
Big game here. Does the one seed, I get it, we saw Virginia choke last year. They're the one seed again. Did they choke in this matchup, guys? Let us know. Does Oklahoma have enough to get past them? I don't think so.
No way.
I think Virginia is probably that first team that gets knocked off as a one seed.
But
I don't think it's in this game.
It's not in the second round.
I agree with you. I think they're at least going to make the Sweet 16. I think Virginia, they're too efficient on offense. They're too efficient on defense. They're top 5 in both in the efficiencies in the NCAA. They're going to be a good enough team. The only thing I can sit there and say about them is they have not been as consistent as you want to see. But Virginia, I think, is still the heavy, heavy favorite to win this round.
Yep, I agree. And it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if it's Ole Miss or Oklahoma. I think Virginia has a lot to prove to the whole nation, and I don't see them
I see
losing.
3-1 Virginia here. Will is going Oklahoma because he loves his upsets, and that's okay, Will. Half the time you're right, I feel like, in the NCAA anyway.
Yeah.
But we got to go we got to go Virginia here, unfortunately, because that's how it works.
Jeremy is saying that Virginia is going to lose in the first round again against G. Webb.
I would say it's never happened before, but it did. So, honestly, again, like I said, if I had to pick a team and I had to put some money on which one of them is going to lose in the first round to a 16 seed, I would definitely pick Virginia. They still have a lot of their players back from last year. They still have that cloud hanging over their head, which is why I don't think it's going to happen. But you never know. They've been inconsistent at times. They definitely need to turn it on for this tournament if they're going to make a deep run.
Looks like the show's going to go with Virginia going into the Sweet 16.
That works for me. Moving forward, I have Wisconsin versus Kansas State. Where's the show sitting?
Wisconsin versus Irvine.
Kansas State, no love from them, Drew. Your boys don't get to go deeper in the tournament.
I have them in my Final Four. That's where I have Virginia losing in the Elite Eight. So, yeah, it's okay though. We'll move on and let us know what you think. Wisconsin or UC Irvine? Who's going to win in that matchup?
Also, Frank, we hate to see you go, man. Thanks for stopping by. We're glad you made it into the show. Guys, vote right now. Who do you think is going to win for your part of the bracket? Look, when I look at this matchup, I think it's going to be Wisconsin versus Kansas State. And I think Kansas State's going to beat them because when you look at Wisconsin, you look at what they have. They have only one They have only one great player in Ethan Happ. And when I look at him, he's basically all their offense. They have a great defense, but he is their offense. It kind of clicks through him, and usually when you only have one great player on offense, teams learn how to game plan with that. I think they're going to be waiting for this matchup, and they're going to try to take him out of the game. When they do that, I see Kansas State moving on to the next round.
Ken says, screw the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about the NFL. Hey, man, if you watch any of other shows, which you probably do.
That's about, 97% of what we talk about?
That's all we talk about, but it's so hard not to talk about this tournament. We all have brackets going, so we're just trying to help everyone talk about brackets and get everyone else's opinion. But right now, it looks like Wisconsin is going to beat Irvine.
I agree. Will, though, I appreciate you holding the torch for all these underdogs, man. Irvine, a 13 seed. He has him making a deep run into the Sweet 16. Look, I like the optimism. That's all I can say. And half the time, maybe they're your Cinderella this year. Maybe that's the team that they sit there and surprise everybody. And we're talking about how they blew up everybody's bracket, right?
Yeah.
Last year was Loyola because nobody had them going deep. Maybe this year it's Irvine.
It's a possibility.
Next game, Drew, St. Mary's versus Purdue here. I like Purdue. I really do. I have St. Mary's. I don't know if the show did as well.
I also have St. Mary's, but as a show, we picked Villanova versus Purdue. So we need to know that matchup. Does Villanova take a deep run and try to win again? Make it 3 out of 4. It's a 6 seed?
It's funny. I had the winner from last year bombed out in the first round of this tournament. They're not the same team. They've lost a lot of talent. I think St. Mary's is going to upset. I really do. But then I look at Purdue, and I look what they've been able to do. They are the Big Ten's leader in three-point shots. That's what I like to see out of my teams because usually those are the teams that succeed. When you can consistently hit your three-pointers, you get hot, you're going to win the game. And I think that's exactly where Purdue's at. I think they're going to be able to beat a team like St. Mary's because they're better. In my opinion, it's all Purdue through this round.
It looks like Purdue is going to get it, but a lot of people are saying St. Mary's should have been it, but we all picked Villanova when we voted yesterday, guys, so...
Unfortunately, yes, but I think Purdue still carries the day. I'm seeing 7, 8, 9 guys going with Purdue here.
Yeah.
All right, moving forward, our next matchup. I have Cincinnati getting through Iowa and playing Tennessee in the second round. Is that what the show has?
That's what the show has. I do not. I have Iowa playing Tennessee.
I like Iowa. I think they're a good team, but I think Cincinnati's been a little more consistent. They've been a little more dangerous this year. My biggest thing with Iowa State is their lack of consistency through the year. That's why I think Cincinnati's going to beat them. Also, the show kind of agreed with me last time.
Yep.
I don't see them holding the candle to Tennessee, though. I think they're too good of a team. They're going to be too focused after bombing out of that SEC tournament and losing to Auburn in the finals in embarrassing fashion. This is going to be one of the more motivated teams in the tournament, is my guess. This is a team that spent time at number 1, I want to remind everybody.
Right. Ken says Iowa. Man, I agree with you completely. Unfortunately, with the show's copy of the bracket, we're looking at Cincinnati and Tennessee, and so far we have 2 votes for Cincinnati.
I see 3 for Cincinnati. Sharif, Will, and Jeremy are going Cincinnati here. Jeremy says it's basically a home game for him, and he's right there.
Yeah.
All right, Cincinnati moves on in our fan bracket. Number 1 in the nation to bombing out in the second round. Big loss for Tennessee if they drop out here. Let's talk next. Our next game, I have North Carolina facing off against Utah State. Did the show have them or Washington scraping through?
Oh, nope, that's it. North Carolina versus Utah State. That's what the show's got. I have Washington beating Utah State in my own bracket, but as a show, we got North Carolina versus Utah State, guys. Give us your votes. Let us know what you think.
Can Utah State hold a candle to a team like UNC that lost to Duke with Zion by 1 point in a game in their tournament that was really, really close all the way to the finals? They dominated Duke without him, too. UNC is probably the second best team in the tournament behind Duke, in my opinion. I like them. I think they're a great team. Spoiler alert, I'm going to have them going pretty deep, too. But does Utah have something that I haven't seen yet? They split with the Mountain West. They won that conference, I guess, if you want to consider a split that direction. And they also won their tournament. So they've had some success. Maybe they're the team that upsets the Tar Heels.
Man, it looks like it's 2-2 so far. And then mostly everyone's saying it's going to be a close game. David says perimeter shooting seems to be the deal now.
I'm seeing UNC all the way through. I think I got 5 or 6 guys. Guys like Ken, Brian, Will are saying UNC. Ken's got 2 votes on there. I got you. I saw he was correcting himself.
Oh, now it's coming out.
Joseph as well.
There we go.
Let me say right choice, guys. I think you got to go with the 1 seed here. I don't think a team like Utah is going to be able to upset them, but you never know. It is an 8 seed. Let's not pretend like they're at the bottom of the tournament. They've got a couple impressive wins, including a tournament win under their belt. Maybe Utah can upset them. I don't think so, but you never know.
Yeah.
Moving forward, Auburn versus Kansas for me. I look at this. You talk about Auburn, who beat a team like Tennessee in the SEC final. They're coached by Bruce Pearl, so they have a veteran leader there. They've got a decent team as well. For a 5 seed, I like these guys. I'm going to pick them to go over Kansas in my bracket, even though Kansas has been wildly successful in years past in basketball.
We're all matched up with the same Auburn versus Kansas. I personally have Kansas beating Auburn, mostly because I was born in Kansas, and I'm a KU fan. But go ahead and vote, guys. Who do you think? Auburn versus Kansas.
When I look at Kansas, if they didn't have those injuries, I would definitely pick them in this. I would pick them to run deeper, but they've had a couple big injuries here this year. They haven't been as good as we've seen in years past. This is going to be a blip on the radar for them. They're going to be back next year. We're going to be talking about Kansas being one of the best schools when it comes to basketball. But for now, I think the Jayhawks are going to be out and have a quick death in this tournament. I don't think they even make Sweet 16.
Oh, wow. So far, we got 3 votes for Auburn.
All right, Bruce Pearl and his boys scraped through. I haven't seen anything else for KU. One for KU with Brian, but unfortunately, I think Bruce Pearl and his boys move forward.
Yeah.
Drew, the voting's over, all right? Just pencil them out. I know you're waiting for something else to happen, but it ain't gonna. You still got Kansas State in there, though, I think.
How do you spell Auburn? Kansas?
That's close.
Okay.
Moving forward, our next game, we have Ohio State and Houston. Now, Houston has only lost 2 games during its entire regular season. I like them as a team. I think they're flying under the radar as much as a 3 seed can fly under the radar. But this is going to be a matchup that I think is going to be interesting. I think the show had Iowa going through instead of Ohio. Was it Iowa or Ohio?
Ohio.
So we do have Ohio State. We kind of agree on that. And Ohio State has been a team that has not been the same this season. They've lost a lot of guys to the NBA. They're kind of struggling through. They're not going to make that, I'm not going to call it a miracle run, but they made a good run through the tournament last year. I don't see that happening again. I think they're going to find their death blow in the second round after they escaped Iowa, and they're going to lose to a team like Houston.
Yeah, I have Iowa State going, but I don't think it makes a difference because I think Houston's going to beat either one of these teams regardless of who they put them in the second round.
Absolutely. Sharif, man, we appreciate the 45 minutes you dedicated to the show. It's better because you guys are here. Obviously, we love each and every comment. Let us know who you think is going to scrape through this second round. I see 2 for Houston.
It's all Houston.
3 Houston, 4 Houston, and Will is going the Ohio State. Will, you still got that torch going, man. I appreciate you. Unfortunately, I think the underdog bombs out here. I think Houston's going to be able to scrape through. Our last matchup of the second round, we have Seton Hall going up against Kentucky, or at least I do. I don't know where the show is at. They agree with me. Seton Hall versus Kentucky. Guys, does Seton Hall have a chance against a team like Kentucky that's been better in past years, but now is starting to find itself? I mean, if you look at the way they played that SEC tournament, if not for a couple calls going against them in that UT game, we could be talking about them beating Auburn and winning the SEC tournament and being right back on top, being a 1 seed. I mean, Kentucky is not the same dangerous team they've been in years past, but they're getting pretty good now. They're trending upward at the time of year where you want to trend upward. Can Seton Hall hold a candle to that?
No. And to be honest with you, they're just outcoached. That's plain and simple.
I totally agree with you. Look at this. 5, 6, 7 guys sitting there saying Kentucky. I agree with you. I think you're all spot on. We're gonna see Kentucky move through into the Sweet 16 and match up against Houston. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Let's go. Will holding strong.
Appreciate that, Will. Keep going, man. Let's talk Sweet 16, Drew. We're going to flip it back to the front side of the bracket. We're going to talk about Duke going up against my pick, Virginia Tech. The show has...
Doesn't matter about your picks no more, sir. It's St. Louis going into the Sweet 16 against Duke. Is there anybody beating Duke, especially...
Is it St. Louis?
Especially a 13 seed?
What a magical run it would be. That's all I can say. And they did win the A-10 tournament. So I can't sit there and dog them too much. They've got a win. They've got a good win under the belt. Are they beating Duke?
No.
No. Not even close. Duke has had too much experience in big games. They've had too many good players for a team like St. Louis to blow by them. But let us know in the comments. Are there enough Duke haters out there to sit there and turn the tide?
Well, there might be haters, but let's just be honest here.
Now, John also has Wofford going. Well, we didn't have them escaping too far, I don't believe. I don't know if they made it out of our first round, unfortunately. Wofford beats Seton Hall. Okay, that would be a great final. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the first round.
That's the first round.
I was thinking Wofford's on the other side of the tournament. Unfortunately, guys, we settled on that the last show. So we had Seton Hall going through as a show. So Wofford eliminated the first round. I was thinking about that, but I also went Seton Hall too. It's going to be one of the better matchups of the first round, I think.
Yeah.
Going back to the Duke versus Virginia Tech what was that? St. Louis. Guys, let us know in the comments. Is this the round Duke gets unseated? Because we need to know.
If we do.
Does Zion go home early in the Sweet 16 because of a team like St. Louis?
It's a possibility. Well, let's move forward while you guys decide who you want to vote. Our next Sweet 16 matchup is LSU versus Michigan State.
Now, this is a great matchup, and it's going to come down to coaching, Drew. Obviously, LSU's without Will Mann because of all of the scandals. They still have all their players. Everybody apparently is going to be able to play this tournament. But when you're missing your coach, you're missing your leader in college basketball, which is incredibly important versus the NBA. I don't really see LSU being able to pull out of this one. I think Michigan State's going to win.
I also have Michigan State winning this.
Now, I do have a couple votes here for Duke, so we're going to put them down as the team that's going to advance from the Sweet 16 to the Elite Eight. Obviously, I thought that was going to be a little bit more of a write-in, but that's okay. Guys, let us know. LSU versus Michigan State. You kind of agree with us there that that's going to be the matchup. Who escapes that round? Let us know in the comments right now.
It looks like so far it's going to be Michigan State.
And I don't think that's a bad pick. Again, I think LSU is going to kind of meet its match when they find a team that's on the same playing field as them and that still has their head coach. I think that's going to be the difference.
Great. So our next matchup in the Sweet 16 is going to be Gonzaga versus Florida State.
Now, I have Marquette here, and I actually have Marquette upsetting Gonzaga. Do you guys see Florida State as a team that can do that as well? Because I do. I like Gonzaga. I think they're a very good team. I like them as a number 1 seed, but I think they've got some tough competition here. Tougher than some teams like Duke that we haven't really seen that matchup that you're like, they could lose this one. That's why I'm going to sit there and say Gonzaga drops this game and bombs out in the Sweet 16.
And Ken is agreeing with you. He's taking Florida State. David says Duke is beatable. Gonzaga beat them at full strength.
They did. Duke has lost a few games. I'm not going to sit there and say that, but when you look at teams like VCU and UCF and Mississippi State and Liberty, do you see any one of them going to have the muscle this early in the tournament to off-seat them? I don't think so, especially when you're talking about Duke having 3 probably top 5 picks in the NBA draft next year with R.J. Barrett, Cam Robinson, and Zion as well.
So it looks right now that Gonzaga is taking...
I'm sorry, Cam Reddish, not Robinson.
Gonzaga is going into the Elite Eight.
Gonzaga moves on. I agree with you. It's going to be a good game. I actually have Marquette going forward, so I don't agree all the way, but I think that's going to be one of those flip the coin kind of games. I think whoever they match up with, whether it's Marquette, whether it's Florida State, it's going to be one of the better ones because I think that's one of the tougher divisions to play in is in the West.
All right, next matchup in the Sweet 16, we have voted Texas Tech versus Michigan, guys. Who do you think is going to win that matchup?
I think it's a tough one. I think when you look at this matchup, I also I have Buffalo going up against Texas Tech instead of what did you say on that one? Did you say St. John's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't see them getting through that round. I think Buffalo is going to play a good game against Michigan, but I really can't sit there and pick them to make it to the final or the Elite Eight this year. I think Michigan's too talented of a squad. They play too good of defense to really off-seed it or to really lose to a team like Buffalo.
Thank you, Sharif.
I like Nate Oates, but I think he's not going to be able to make it through this round.
So Josh Stanley says FSU will be too physical for Gonzaga, and they will take it. They will take that game. Man, I don't disagree with you, but the show's going to vote against you. But man, you're got a point. I mean, they're a physical team.
Absolutely. Now, with this matchup, guys, let us know in the comments who's pulling through here. I see one Texas Tech. I got 2 Texas Techs here.
I got multiple Michigan.
Okay. That works for me.
4 Michigan, so
Michigan pulls through. I think that's going to be one of the more interesting matchups because I think the West is one of the better brackets right now when you talk about these teams that could make a deep push. I think that's where we're going to see some upsets. We're going to see some teams scrape through that we didn't necessarily expect, and this might be the bracket busting kind of side of the tournament this year.
So right now, what we have is the 1 and 2 seeds in the East and 1 and 2 seeds in the West. We're going to the South, the Sweet 16. We got Virginia against Wisconsin.
I have Kansas State here. Again, I have Kansas State actually beating Virginia in this one because I think Virginia is going to lose this game. But going with the show's pick, I think this is still an upset pick. I just don't like Wisconsin only having one great offensive player in Hap. I think they're going to lose to Virginia if that's the matchup, and I'd pick Virginia to move forward.
Guys, vote. Let us know what you think. We got Virginia versus Wisconsin in your guys' poll. Let us know who you think is going to go into the Elite Eight.
So far, I see one Virginia with Ken picking them to go through. I think it's tough. Again, Wisconsin plays really good defense, and you have a team like Virginia that is very efficient with the ball. They do a good job of scoring with every possession, or at least percentage-wise, compared to everybody else in the NCAA. So I think Virginia is going to be a tough team to off-seat unless you can put up a lot of points as well. I don't really think Wisconsin's going to have the firepower to keep up with them.
Sharif, thank you so much. We are on Twitter, guys. We're also on YouTube. We're also on Periscope. Check us all out wherever you can, and if you got any of those accounts, please send us a like. We'd love to have it.
Yeah, if you want to float around, again, we stream on both Twitter, Periscope, and Facebook here as well. We're on YouTube too. If you guys want to join any part of the conversation on any platform, we're there for you.
It looks like Virginia's going to take them into the Elite Eight. The Sweet Eight.
The Elite Eight. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's going to be a good game. I still think that's a good matchup. Again, I didn't have Kansas State losing to Wisconsin, but I still think they're a good team. Wisconsin could upset, but I think Virginia, in that matchup, has to be the favorite.
In this bracket, we didn't even have Kansas State leaving the first round.
Let's talk about our next set. St. Mary's and Purdue is what I have on the board. Do they also agree? They have Purdue and Cincinnati. Guys, let us know. This is going to be a better matchup. I like Cincinnati as a team, but they're not necessarily a dominant team either. I think Purdue and that offensive powerhouse that they are going to be able to scrape through in this one. I think when you look at this matchup, I think Purdue is obviously the favorite in seeding and on the court. When you look at it on paper, Purdue's got to be able to win. But am I wrong? Can Cincinnati really pull through in this one?
It's a possibility, yeah. But I do think Purdue's just a better team altogether.
They do have good wins. Cincinnati has beat Ole Miss. They have beat UCF. I like this team. I don't see them beating Tennessee, but coming off a big win like that, usually sometimes you come in a little bit deflated. I don't see them beating a team like Purdue. Let us know in the comments, though. Can they escape them?
Well, right now it's 3-1, so it looks like Purdue's going to be taking this away unless we get some more Cincinnati votes.
All right, let's go with Purdue. Purdue's marching on, and let's move on to our next setup, which is North Carolina, I believe, versus... I'm sorry, what does the show have?
Auburn.
Versus Auburn. again, tough teams. Auburn won the SEC tournament against some tough 2 seeds versus Kentucky. They didn't play Kentucky, but they outlasted them, and then they beat Tennessee soundly in the final. This is a good squad. I don't think North Carolina's going to lose, especially when you see the way they've played teams like Duke this year. But you never know. If there's going to be an if there's going to be an upset, I think Auburn has a good chance of it.
I think North Carolina is just too much of a solid team in general, and they played such great competition against Duke 3 times and losing one of those. I mean, this team knows how to play as a full team. I see this team going to the national championship.
I do too. I actually have them in the national championship as well. I have them going to the final game, so I'm going to have them escaping Auburn. But I do agree with you. I think this is going to be the matchup. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to scrape by in this one. I know you guys are a couple seconds behind us too, but
Sweet 16, we got North Carolina versus Auburn. Guys, let us know who you think is going to take this win.
I'm seeing 3 for UNC right now, and then 2 for Auburn. So if you want to break the tie, here's your chance. Brian is going with Auburn, and then I'm seeing guys like Ken, Sharif, and John also going for UNC. Will is saying Auburn. He's still sticking with his upsets, and Will, this is a good team to pick for that upset. This could be the Cinderella this year, and I know it's not necessarily a Cinderella because they're a 5 seed. But when you're talking about them playing teams like the Tar Heels, when you're talking about them going up against potentially teams like Kansas as well, they've got some tough games going to this point.
Right, and if at this point in time they will be the lowest seed in the Elite Eight in your guys' bracket if they win here. But right now we have to give it to North Carolina by 1 vote.
All right, guys, UNC moving forward. Next, Drew, our final matchup of the night, because we've been going on for longer than I wanted to. I was hoping to make it a half an hour to 45-minute show, but we got into NFL. That's okay. Next up, Houston versus Kentucky. Does the show agree with me? They do.
They do.
Absolutely, guys. I think this is going to be a great matchup. Again, Houston, even though they haven't played as tough competition as a team like Kentucky has through the rest of this year, they've only lost 2 games. They know what they're doing. I like Houston as a squad. I think this is going to be a tough matchup. I just think UK's pulling through. I mean, you talk about Calipari and everything he's been through. This team is so experienced, or at least Calipari is. He's going to have the leadership. He's got a bunch of guys that are getting hot at the right moment. I think Kentucky's going to win this.
This is the matchup. This is the game to watch, the Sweet 16, Houston versus Kentucky. I like these two going up against each other, and I think it'll be one of the best games out of the Sweet 16 if this is the matchup. So, guys, let us know what you think is going to win this game. Is it Kentucky? Is it Houston? Let us know, and we'll get it down, and then we'll move on.
I'm seeing 2 Kentucky right now. Houston with Will again.
2 Houston.
Keeping the flame alive. Yeah, it's tied up. Sharif is saying Kentucky's going to get by in a close one. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
You think it's going to be close?
I think
do
this
too.
is going to be the best game out of the Sweet 16 if this is a matchup.
Absolutely agree with you. I think this game is going to be one.
Houston just took the lead.
Okay. We have a big upset, I guess, unless you want to step up to the plate right now. I'm seeing 4 for Houston. Then again, now Sharif is saying Houston
3.
will fold. Sorry.
It's 3-2.
All right. Let's write them off. Kentucky.
All right, guys. No
bites
one else
the
wants
dust.
to vote. It's real quick.
I know there's a lot of UK fans out there. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
This is it.
All right, guys.
All right, Houston is making it to the Elite. Hold on. Okay, yeah. Houston is making it to the Elite 8.
All right, guys. We are going to round out the rest of this tournament tomorrow on our Wednesday show, which is normal time, again, at 6:45. We hope to see you there because we want your opinion on who is going to get through on the rest of this tournament. I like a lot of your picks. Again, a lot of your picks have been going the right way. Some of you guys have been, a little bit different than where I'm at, but it's the tournament.
What?
Well, not entirely. He's picked the same upsets as me. But
he's picked every upset.
That's okay.
That's
you look at this bracket. It
can
happens a lot. You're going to be right on a few of these, and you're going to be able to sit there and say, see, I called it.
No, Bees does not like us taking Houston over Kentucky, but unfortunately, man, your vote just would have tied it, and you were a little late on the vote.
Absolutely. The voting is closed. You got to step up a little bit quicker than that, but maybe next time. Honestly, is it going to be that big of a shock to see Kentucky go out this early?
A little bit.
The year they've had, I think it's probably about right.
A little
to
bit,
drop
but
this
Houston
game.
is a good team, and it is a well-coached team. Even though Bees is saying, not Bees, I'm sorry, Sharif is saying Sampson, the coach at Houston, will fold, but it's yet to be seen, man.
Absolutely. Now, I get it. Again, Houston hasn't had those same kind of matchups that some of these other guys have had, but they're still a good team. They've still put a really good roster. I think they deserve that 3 seed as well. I think Kentucky's in for a dogfight if this does actually wind up being the matchup.
Yep. Well, that's it for us, guys. Thank you so much for joining our show. We appreciate all the comments, the likes, the shares. It's totally appreciated. We love talking sports with you. Check us out tomorrow. We'll be talking about the Final Four and the National Championship in your guys' poll and
the Elite Eight. Don't forget about that round.
I'm sorry, and the Elite Eight, but who gets to the Final Four? And we'll also be talking again NFL. I mean, our bread and butter. We love talking sports with you guys. I do want to give a special thanks to everyone out there that did get comments, and if I missed you, I'm so sorry. It's just so overwhelming. It's so awesome to have it.
Absolutely.
But real quick, Sharif, Shay, Steve, Will, Nathan, Brian, Rob, Joseph, Jeremy, Nate, Charo, Thomas, Sean, Jason, Deo, John, David, Jeremy, Frank, Sony, Dave, Ken, Bees, Jeremy, David, Josh, Michael. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much. The repeats are pretty crazy. I had to try to remember your guys' last names, but I definitely think I got you all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
If we did miss you, again, we appreciate the comments. You make the show so much better. We appreciate you contributing to the conversation. Also, before we get out of here, Will says Vontez Burfict to Oakland. It'd be a great fit, and they need him. I think that's fantastic. We're going to talk about him a little bit more tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, we definitely will. I think that was the second comment I saw of it. To be honest, we're in the show. It's hard for us to keep up with the news. If Burfict is in Oakland, they got themselves a guy that's going to hit that offensive line real hard and try to help stop the run.
Absolutely. All right, guys. For Sports Around the Bar, I am Jake, your bartender. This is Drew. We will see you tomorrow to finish out this NCAA tournament and maybe talk a little bit more football. We always get around to it.
See ya.